everyone. I hope you're having a good weekend. Thank you for your patience with our last episode. I'm wondering if anybody tried our cinnamon squares. Tonight, I'm sharing with you what we're making for dinner. Our family is hungry and we are excited to have our favorite meal, especially on a rainy day, and that is corn chowder. Also from the same recipe book, Magnolia Table with Joanna Gaines. So I have some items here that we're going to use. These are pretty much all the ingredients we're going to use for this recipe. I'm going to go ahead and flash up the recipe again so that you can take a look at what we're using and then start to clear off some of this stuff and get ready to chop. All right, I've cleared away my stuff and we are back to start chopping. We're gonna chop 1 red bell pepper, 1 yellow bell pepper, about 2 onions, and I like a whole lot of celery in our soup. So I'm gonna chop up a bunch of celery. I'm dicing all of them. I'm gonna get that started. But 2 little tips for you. I love having a garbage bowl, stole this from Rachel Ray, on hand. So when I chop off the ends of like my celery, this has all been washed, but it's still like the ends. When I chop that off, I throw it right into my garbage bowl. Then I like to have another bowl, because this is all getting diced together, to throw all the diced stuff together. It's all gonna go in at the same time, so it just helps with prep. I'm gonna get started on this, and when we come back, it'll all be magically chopped and put into the silver bowl. Okay, all my chopping's done. I'm over here at the stove. I have this awesome big soup pot that I like to make soup in. So I chopped everything up. I'm over here at the stove. Here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna throw in a stick of butter. Usually with chowders, they're very heavy with heavy cream and everything like that. So it does seem like a lot to put a full stick of butter in. First of all, this is a big recipe. And second of all, it's really only butter and 1 other ingredient at the end that makes this creamy. There's no heavy cream in it at all. The next thing the recipe calls for is to put in 2 sticks or 2 pieces, and I'm putting in 3, I have to substitute today, of bacon. For the vegetarians out there, I do make a vegetarian version of this and I just don't put the bacon in. And then when it gets to adding chicken stock later on, you can add vegetable stock. So it's totally an option for vegetarians to not add the bacon. For those of you who are not vegetarian, who want a little bit of that smoky flavor, put the bacon in. So I'm gonna let this melt in the pot. I'm pulling open my drawers to get a spoon, and you can take a look here. I'm gonna let this melt down with the bacon in here, and I'm going to go ahead, once that's all melted, I'm gonna go ahead and add in my chopped up onions, peppers, and celery. And we're gonna let that cook down. All right, and then I'll tell you the next step. Putting in the veggies. We wanna cook these until the onions get translucent. Sounds good. All right, so this is cooking up nicely. It smells delicious. The steam is coming off. Everything's bubbling up quite nicely. So the next step is that you want to put a 1/2 cup of flour. As I mentioned before, I use gluten-free flour, so it makes it a little funny, but it totally works. Regular flour is going to be fine, but what's going to happen is you're going to need to cook that flour a little bit, and it's going to create like a roux, and that's a fancy word for like a paste, and that this roux actually has vegetables in it, so it's not a traditional one, but it's gonna cook up and it's gonna create this paste, and then that's what's gonna help your soup thicken later on. So I'm putting a 1/2 cup in, take a look. I'm sprinkling it in, and then I'm gonna let that flour soak up the butter that was in there and cook up for about 2 minutes. That's it, not long. And then we're gonna add the next steps. All right, so I'm constantly stirring this because you do not want it to stick to the bottom. It's sticking. I turn my heat down a little bit. It's sticking. So here's what we're gonna do right away. That's when you know it's done. We're gonna go ahead and take a whole box or a whole 32 ounces of chicken stock, and we're gonna dump it in. Again, if you're vegetarian, no bacon, and put veggie stock in it. It tasted the same. One time I made it that way. My family didn't even know. So, tasted completely the same, but we're gonna put that in. Immediately go and kind of scrape the bottom, just in case there's any flour stuck to the bottom. We're gonna do that. The other part that we're gonna put in right now, this is a perfect time to season the soup. We're gonna do some salt and pepper. I I love the sound of pepper. And I don't like things overly salty, so I'm just gonna do a couple turns of salt, and we can always add that later. The last ingredient during this step is the 5 cans of white shoe peg corn. The white is sweet and it reminds me of summer. That's why we love this recipe so much. But we're putting 5 cans in. That's a lot. If you don't like as much corn, just don't put 5 cans in. But I'm gonna go put those cans in and the liquid in it. So we just clean the can, open it up, dump it in, and then we're gonna let this sit for just a little bit. So our soup has been simmering for a little bit, probably like 5 minutes, not long. For those of you watching who want a quick dinner, the most time-intensive piece of this is chopping all of those veggies. Otherwise, the cooking of it goes quite fast. Here's the ingredient that I told you makes it creamy. Instead of putting heavy cream or anything in, we're gonna put a whole block of cream cheese. Again, this feeds a lot. But I cut it into chunks and I'm just dropping it in the soup. Now that the soup's hot, it's gonna help melt those chunks. In Joanna Gaines' recipe, she has you put this in the last step all together. I like to wait a little bit so that the soup is nice and warm and helps to melt the cream cheese. So I'm gonna do this, stir it around and wait for the cream cheese to melt, and then I'm gonna give you a bonus addition that I add into this recipe that makes it so much better. So I'll be right back. Okay, so take a look at how creamy this has gotten. When the temperature rises, that's when that flour kind of thickens up the soup, as well as the cream cheese. So my temperature's down. I'm gonna add in some more pepper because I love pepper. I'm gonna continue to add more pepper. When I serve this, I'll probably add some more pepper. I'm gonna do a little bit more salt at this time. And then here's the ingredient that is not in her recipe. If you want anything to taste really, really good, you're gonna use some Worcestershire sauce. That's fun to say, don't ask me to say it again. But this is this Liam Perrin sauce. It is lovely. And I'm gonna go ahead and put, I don't know, I don't measure much of anything. So I'm gonna put about 2 tablespoons in. Actually, that's the end of the bottle for us folks, so that's all that's going in. But it's about 2 tablespoons. You can do it for whatever tastes good. I go ahead and I stir this up, making sure that everything's not sticking at the bottom. And we are ready to plate up our soup. Coming back in just a minute. We are ready to go, served up. I put some garnish on there. Again, you do not have to use bacon. My family likes little bacon bits on the top, some chopped chives, and then my husband loves it hot and spicy. So take a look. We're gonna add a little bit of Tabasco sauce. You can use buffalo sauce, whatever it is. You get to add to it whatever you want. So we hope you enjoy, again, from our kitchen to yours, super simple dinner, corn chowder, and dig in.